Welcome to Security and GRC Decoded, the podcast where security, governance, risk, and compliance professionals, CISOs, executive leaders, and practitioners can stay ahead of industry trends and challenges. I'm your host, Raj Krishnamurthy, founder of Compliance Co. Join us twice a month to bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and real-world stories to elevate your security, governance, risk, and compliance programs. Each week, we decode the complexities of GRC to help you make smarter decisions and drive innovation in your organization. Let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome. Hey, welcome to Security and GRC Decoded. I'm your favorite host, Raj Krishnamurthy. And today we have the most awesome Jiphun Satapathy today. Jiphun, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Raj.
Jiphun is the CISO and Senior Vice President at Medallia. He has held senior security engineering and leadership roles at companies like Lexmark, Intel, Visa, and he has successfully built 0-1 security teams at AWS and Snowflake. He's also a very avid reader. We are going to talk about some of your books as well, or the books that you read as well, Jiphun. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you, Raj. Looking forward to it. I know you run a pretty good podcast and one of my obviously favorite topics. So looking forward to speaking with you and sharing my experiences.
Thank you, Jiphun. Let's dive right in. Let's take something very controversial or a hot take opinion you have. What would that be, Jiphun?
You want to start with some spicy
with a bang.
Topic? Yeah. There are many. I think the immediate one that comes to my mind is, in general, I see sometimes like cybersecurity leaders or CISOs, they don't have a lot of inclination to engage with vendors. And I understand vendors, we get a lot of requests, but I don't know that it is controversial enough, but they are averse to engaging with them as much as they need. I see that as a absolute need. So if you are not engaging with them, I'm not a vendor, I'm not trying to sell anything, but the vendors or the products that are being built in cybersecurity world gives me a pretty good view on the innovation that is happening. So I don't know what better way you can be on top of learning what's latest and greatest and how the world is solving cybersecurity challenges without directly talking to those who are building it, right? And they are learning from it. So I feel like many of the CISOs, especially new leaders who are entering into the CISO world, have some sort of aversion to that. And that's not right, in my opinion. I would highly encourage everybody to be more engaged, more involved. I know we cannot support all, but stay engaged with them.
No,
Today,
that's a brilliant.
that.
That's a beautiful point, Jiphun. But I'm sure as a CISO, you're getting bombarded with requests.
Right.
So how do you filter them?
Yeah, the way you filter that is somewhat based on your need. So you need to know what are your big risks, big areas, gaps, or innovation that where you want to bring. You may not know the solution. So you should have a plan at least for a year to 2 out, right? Who knows what happens in 5 years. But at least a good solid 2-3 years plan roadmap you should have. And based on that, you should be open to talking to people. In many cases, you will say, let's say cloud security. Cloud security, for example, is an area for us, for example, for me to look at. And when I joined Medallia, one of the areas that I looked at is how are we protecting our cloud infrastructure and also our on-prem. So that immediate need drove me to go engage with some of the vendors. Some of them I knew, some of them reached out to me. So I selected a few, then I spoke with all, then we decided, hey, this is the right solution based on where we stand. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to talk to more folks in that space for, let's say, another year or two until my renewal comes up. So I know that is a critical area for me, or a major area for us to make sure that we're staying on top of risk. So based on your needs, so I still talk to some of the other cloud vendors, cloud security vendors, because I want to know what they are building. Are they doing better than what I have today? Things like that. So I would prioritize based on that few areas and be open to at least 3-4 in each of those vectors. Beautiful. I don't need to talk to them every week, every month, but need to go figure out. That is one way. The second part is also something that, do you have an interest? In general, I always have an interest coming from the world of builders. Like I want to know what problems the world is solving in an innovative way. Like I was talking to recently a company which is looking at training cybersecurity in a very innovative way, right? Today, our cybersecurity training is very static. Everybody gets a training, set up training every once a year or once a quarter. Everybody gets the same. But that doesn't work really well because in a company, everybody's roles, responsibilities, access, and the information they have access to is different. So how about we, target our training? So they are looking at something like that. I may not have a priority to change that today or a year, but when I'm talking to some of these companies, it's giving me ideas that, the world is building a solution. So, there is an idea that we can improve. So with the same cost or the same objective, I can do better, right? So that helps me stay on top of what's happening, what sort of innovation is going, and then I share that with my team. I bring them into that. So that's how I would prioritize and filter some of them. Yeah.
Got it. And what roles do your teams have to play in this? And how do you is this decision democratized, and how do you bring them in, and where do you bring them in?
So in general, I drive a more like a bottom-up approach when it comes to priorities, decisions. So it's not like I make the decision and ask my team to go drive it. It's a decision because they are more closer to the problems, right? So as a team, we prepare on a quarterly basis and go look at our risk register. What are some of the major risks we have? So that drives one. Then another way we prioritize is our business needs, right? So those are primarily two vectors which drives our priorities. So that helps teams to determine which area to invest. But let's say certain area is not in our radar or in our plan, but we do see a potential opportunity to either improve or make our process more efficient, or innovate something. Then I bring in the right team who should think about it, so they go explore that. For example, in this case training, my compliance team's head, she is responsible for this. So in this case I bring her to this. She looks at the solution, and so then she has now a plan. Okay, you know what? I don't have any plans to change. I do see a potential, so maybe 2 quarters out. So that's how we drive it.
Got it. Risk-based investments is the approach that you take.
Correct. Primarily, most of the initiatives are risk-based or business-based. End of the day, risk is also driving business too. So the primary objective is to run a cybersecurity company is more or less a risk-based priority, right? Yeah.
Got it. And when you bring some of these innovative tools, you'll have to also change the culture within the organization, which is not an easy feat.
That's true.
Maybe can you talk a little bit to our audience in terms of some of the challenges you typically encounter, and as a leader, what do you do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think you touched a very good point, like, culture and changing culture. And believe it or not, it's not the people or the process or the technology, it's the culture which actually drives your security posture, believe it or not, right? So end of the day, is security priority zero for you? Like one of my previous CEOs, when I was with Amazon specifically, Andy Jassy, who would always say, nothing burns customer trust faster than a security breach. So there you go. Is that ingrained in everybody in your company? Do people really believe in that? Nobody is going to say security is not a priority, but your actions define your culture, right? So, for example, in my same company, he would spend 1 hour every week looking at overall major issues that happened in the security space. A CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, Andy Jassy.
Wow.
If he could spend 1 hour every Friday with the security team and the respective engineering teams, I'm sure many other CEOs can do that as well. So fortunately, I have been with the companies where CEOs have been extremely paranoid about security, and they have made sure that priority is zero. Here, my CEO does the same thing, Mark as well, Mark Bishop. He has made sure that security is priority zero. I report to the CTO, who has made it very clear that security posture has to be top-notch, because we serve many of the top regulated, highly regulated customers. So there is no excuse there, right? So that's what it drives, the culture. So, but with that being said, you can ensure that everybody in your company believes that security is priority zero. But it's also on the security team to make sure that the practices, processes that we are bringing is actually helping teams deliver what they want to deliver in a much faster or more productive fashion. You cannot simply say that because of high security, we got to add these 5 other steps. And especially with AI and the development and the productivity. If teams can build an application, let's say overnight, and you take another week to review and say that that's a secured app or not, that's not going to work. So when you're bringing these new tools, one of the angle that when I bring in new tools or anything like that, 2 angles I look. One is how is it adding or helping or reducing the overall operational cost. Like, for example, if I am bringing, let's just say, same training tool, targeted training, is that going to help not just from the security side? How is that helping my developers, for example, or my salespeople? So today, my challenge is developers get the same training as that of a sales or professional services team, right? But going forward, I'm going to tell, because of this new tool, now a developer needs to know how not to, let's say, leak credentials, how not to, introduce application level issues. So now I can target that. So the way you tell the story is this new introduction of the tool is not just raising the bar in security, but is actually helping you deliver your products or do your day-to-day work in a much more efficient fashion, right? Like another way, initiative that I drove in my previous company, which I'm driving here as well, is using strong MFA, right? Now, MFA everybody has, but if you have a push-based MFA, that's still prone to phishing. So one of the things we did is we want to use touch-based or biometrics-based multi-factor authentication, right? So that's a much stronger, from the security side or man-in-the-middle attack type, that's a much stronger technology to put. But if I go and tell the story about the security, this is not very exciting for our users. But if you tell them the story that, you know what, now we are going to implement a multi-factor authentication, a mechanism which would not require for you to remember any password. It would not require you to use your mobile device to get a push, and if you have forgotten your mobile device somewhere, you have to walk. No, everything happens from the laptop that was given to you. Because we know over the last 3-4 years, all the laptops come with all the technologies. So you got to tell the story in a way, and intentionally, we are also rolling this out not just just to raise the security bar, but also make user experience better, right? So when you are going to communicate that to the teams, you got to tell them how it's helping their business or their day-to-day work. Don't just go and tell, hey, it's a better or stronger security, we have issues. That would not be very interesting for them. So that's how I say, culture, security should be priority 0, but security team also need to believe and deliver a culture that, hey, we are here to empower or help teams do their things much faster, much better, or more efficient way. So that has to be ingrained in the security team.
I love the way you put it, and I think that is brilliant. And is this because of you're a builder turned security leader? So a lot of the builder aspects of it is something that I'm seeing as we are having this conversation. The empathy that you have with developers, is that where that is coming from?
I would probably say that that's a very good point you touched, where this empathy or the mindset is coming. You are absolutely right. I started my career as a software engineer, and I would say my real security career started at Intel. When I joined Intel as a senior software engineer, I built products using hardware security, and then that did wonders to my career. Learned a lot of stuff, built enterprise grade products, which is great. During that, one thing I experienced is that this whole getting a blessing from a certain group, which says, yep, this is done right from security perspective. I was a little bit, in general, I'm a little bit of a contrarian, so I was not super happy about it. I took the ownership on being that security architect and working with that team to make sure that all the products that we are building meets that security bar. But I was not super happy. It felt somewhat like a bureaucratic process, saying, hey, you got to get the blessing from certain set of people. I was not a big fan of that, but we had to do it for the heck of doing it. And they were doing a pretty good job in the sense they have to make sure that all these teams are building the right thing. And I'm talking, this is a 2015-ish time frame, so 10 years ago, right? So that kind of, and then slowly I transitioned to the other side of the table where the InfoSec side. So I definitely recognize and relate with the pain points that developers, engineers, or practitioners face. That is one. Second thing, when I joined AWS, I needed to scale product security or AppSec team at a scale that's I had not seen before. We all know Amazon, the pace that they innovate or the build software and services, and AWS was in a pretty rapid growth around 2017. After about 3-4 years, I stayed there. And also customer experience. And I treat my internal stakeholders is somewhat like a customer. So I'll say, like, security has a dual role. So we have to protect our external customers, end customers, and their information. We have to influence our stakeholders, but we have to treat very close to them like a customer. We hold them accountable, but that experience matters. And somehow, coincidentally, I'm now working for a company which its primary product is customer experience and employee experience. So as that thread is somehow weird. So yeah, I would say it probably comes from that. Like, and I will also some question, right, all the time, why? Why should we do what we are doing, right? And if you know why, then you can tell the story why. So then you buy trust from them. Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that we constantly face is that, for example, when we talk about security or compliance style, a lot of the value, especially in technology first companies, accrues to engineers if done right, and that's a big if. But the challenge has always been that the GRC teams or the security teams have not been able to convince their leaders that there is a broader story to be told there, which I think you beautifully articulated. So what advice would you have to your peer CISOs and also to for example, a GRC manager listening or a security manager listening on how to build that business case and up-level the conversation?
Yeah. So first, understand what the business is. First, understand what's the objective of a team or a company. End of the day, you are not here just to secure stuff. You are here to deliver for the business so that we can continue to serve our customer. Like anybody in the team, right? Not just security, right? Our primary objective is to make sure that we are delivering our business to the best of our ability. So first, understand what business we are in, I would say. So go talk to your stakeholders, look at their roadmap, talk to the sales and professional services team, what customers are asking. I would say even go talk to customers directly, but many a time security and compliance team especially the security engineering side of things, are not very customer facing. Compliance is somewhat because they need to meet that. But I would say look for opportunities where you can just be a fly on the wall and listen what customers are saying, right? So if customers are asking for certain things in cybersecurity or some certification and you are building certain other things, then it's not going to align. So that is first thing, understand the business. Then go understand the pain points that the non-security or the stakeholder teams are facing. And then end of the day, use that information and then you bring your subject matter expertise. So you know what are some of the risks and what would be the impact. And literally, a one-size-fits-all approach is not going to work, or what worked for you in a different company is also not going to work. I'll give you a very good example. Like, when I was with AWS, obviously a massive company, much bigger company, so the stakes are much high. The systems, processes, culture, mindset is somewhat kind of set. We didn't have to reinvent that. So I was in that journey of how do we scale better, faster, things like that. But when I joined Snowflake right after its IPO. So it was in a super hyper growth mode, right? And they hired me to build the enterprise security or corporate security team. It didn't exist before that. So I was in that journey of, again, same thing, like building a foundation and then growing. But what I learned the hard way is I didn't take a step back to look at that, hey, the process mechanisms that I had put a year ago, is it still valid? And I learned it hard way, because what happens is when you start from scratch, you are kind of trying to put a bigger net, saying, hey, I want to catch all the fish, right? And I will probably get 10% of it, right? And then I want to reduce it. But you, as a security team, we also need to question all the time. We cannot question every day, every week, every month, but once a year, once 6 months. Hey, I have a mechanism, I have a process. For example, security review we do. We say, we want to security review or security scrutinize everything that goes out. But that process needs to evolve. And how do you evolve? Because if the business is changing or business is using different mechanism and the security teams are not aligned with that, then it's not going to scale. So it is always good to take a step back. So I would say those three and think again. And our job is to make sure to see business succeed. Don't come across as a compliance. The challenge that compliance teams face sometimes is that they come with a list of controls or the compliance requirements that we must meet in order for us to get certified. So, which is perfectly fine, but tell that in a way that the business understands, right? You can simply say, hey guys, we are going into this market and this market requires the password to be rotated. And we are going through, let's say, I'm just giving an example, FedRAMP, because we are going into the, let's say, government space or defense space or whatever it is. So we need to get the FedRAMP certification, and FedRAMP certification, let's say, requires us to rotate password every 30 days. I mean, it is a fact, for example, then we have to convey that to the business. So tell the why, why is it important for the requirement or the control that you are implementing. Always telling why goes a long way too. So I would say those are few things that you need to build. Think from their perspective versus you going there, hey, I want these 10 things done by this date, and this is all security. So that won't fly.
Got it. And how do you think in general, in your experience, Jiphun, how others, particularly the engineering teams, view security and compliance?
I think it depends on how the security team and compliance team have built that relationship first. From my experience, I would say many times I have seen engineering teams really appreciate security teams, but I have been part of companies where that mindset and culture is there ingrained. They don't appreciate some of the processes, mechanisms that we have. They don't, enjoy, obviously, when we say, hey, we got a number of vulnerabilities that you need to fix. They do feel that as a pain point, but look at it. Like, for example, one of the things I'm actually driving right here at Medallia is we want to see our vulnerability posture pretty good. We don't want out of SLA vulnerabilities in our environment. And my team and the engineering team does really well in staying on top of it. But what my team did is they actually went one step further. Instead of just using a tool, scan for findings and then dumping on the developer saying, hey, we got these 5,000 issues, go fix it. They actually took that extra step, worked with the tool and learned the innovation side again here to determine how can I prioritize it. If I take the entire 50,000 findings and dump it on developer team, they cannot. So we need to help them how they can prioritize the ones that matter. So we looked at exploitability, reachability angle, and today's tools can provide that, right? So if you're using the latest and greatest tool, so you use that and you show a funnel, guys, I got 40,000 issues, but down to now 500 issues. That looks more manageable. Okay, I give you 3 months. Let's figure it out, how to fix it, right? Some of them the mitigating controls. We are also looking at now going one step further with the advent of AI, is that 60% of these issues are pretty standard issues. Fix is pretty standard. So AI can now recommend that, hey, it can literally create a PR saying, hey, all you have to do is, look, this is the issue. We understand this is a priority. This is even the fix. So all you have to do is just check the PR and make sure that it's not breaking your system. We cannot tell that because engineering team better your system than us. So when the teams see that security team is going and figuring out constantly how to make their lives better while hitting security, they would love you. And they recognize that it is important. Nobody is not saying that it's not important. It's just that how you build that mechanism which scales, and they really need to see. That's what I say. Words don't matter. Actions do. So when you are constantly working with them and showing, so you connect the dots, right? You are on top of innovation, you're bringing tools, challenging vendors, and then bringing it and showing it through data, then that wins hearts and minds, I would say. Yeah.
I love it. In fact, I'm going to point our listeners, and maybe we'll put a copy link to it, of a paper that you wrote in 2021 on, I think if I remember right, how to earn trust, or trust has to be earned, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliantly said. I think you're covering a lot of those points that you spoke a couple of years ago, right? So
yeah,
so great.
I think trust is, I genuinely believe, right? At the end of the day, this cybersecurity, we are a service organization, right? We don't, in general, I'm saying, I'm sure some CISO organizations probably ship products or build, and I have done that in the past in a certain way. But in general, we are a service organization. We want to make sure the company remains secured. We want to make sure customer information remains secured. So we are serving all these teams so that they can do their job. So when you're serving customers, you need to earn their trust. They should trust you, and they cannot trust you just by words. They need to see actions,
The actions.
and
Absolutely.
what value you are adding, right? So end of the day, it's
Absolutely.
all about that relationship and trust. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you hold two teams today. You have multiple teams.
Yeah.
Two of them, you run the security teams, engineering, architecture, so on and so forth. You also hold the GRC team, governance, risk, and compliance. How
Correct.
do you see these two teams, and what role do they play in reinforcing each other?
Yeah, I think they hold somewhat each other accountable. The way I see the GRC team is they are accountable to make sure that we are meeting all sorts of certification needs so that our customers can continue to use our product. So if you are going into the finance space or healthcare or government, whatever space, whatever certification we need or our customers need rather, we must hit that. We must continue. We have to make sure that year in, year out, we are staying on top of it. Right. So it is their responsibility to do the audit, to make sure whatever innovation, whatever changes or updates happening in that certification space, and making sure that that's being implemented internally. Second thing is risk. They are managing risk. End of the day, they are accountable to demonstrate what outstanding risks we have within the company. And how are we making progress? They are not responsible to solve that risk, but they are responsible or accountable to make sure I know or my CEO knows, hey, these are the top 10 cyber risks that we as a company living with. And, this is the trajectory. These risks are getting mitigated or it's getting worse or we are not making any changes, and holding people accountable there. Then the other part of governance, right, as the name says, right, end of the day, they are primary team which is governing that right things are happening. For example, the AI governance. Okay, so we have a policy now. So they make sure that all these policies are well executed, maintained, or operated by various stakeholders. So their responsibility is to make sure that we have the right owners defined and they're driving that. Now comes to the security engineering part. In the sense, we have a product security, we have enterprise security, we have SOC teams. Their responsibility is make sure that we are designing, implementing processes, mechanisms, metrics, tools to meet those requirements first, or the control needs first, in addition to the risks that being highlighted in that risk management. So so it's a very tight coupling that needs to happen, so that then only these guys, compliance guys, can say to the world or the customer, the auditor, yep, we have done all this. This is the evidence that we can show you. But how we implement, they don't need to know. For example, MFA. We want MFA, for example, a certification in MFA. The compliance team will ask, okay, do we have MFA? But that MFA might be push-based notification or based MFA might be just fine from certification perspective, but we want to set a bar which is through risk, which is much higher than what is being asked for certification. That's why I always say compliance or certification is like table stakes for us. We should be able to hit that day in, day out. But that doesn't drive or determine our security posture by its entirety. Our security posture is determined by what our customers need and what we are paranoid about. So that's why we hold a much higher bar, so that any day, any time, if we want to go into any of the certifications, they are kind of given. Obviously, there is a mechanism and process that needs to happen. It's not like check mark, but they don't determine the overall security posture of our company. Because
Got it.
So that's why I sometimes say, the whole certification or the compliance, they bring us revenue because our customers will only buy if we meet that on a consistent basis. So they bring the money. But the security or the risk or the engineering side, they save us from hackers because end of the day, your systems are vulnerable. Everything cannot be controlled by those certifications. It has to be from your own security assessment and your risk management framework that you have. Yeah.
Got it. And do you see the GRC has three functions, right? Governance, risk, and compliance. And I think, as you rightly said, compliance establishes the baseline. the bare minimum, as you said, that you need to do, and then the risk is a continuous process, right? That you have to continuously
correct. Risk is more like yeah.
The one of the challenges that we typically come across is that technology first companies, almost all of us have become cloud first and AI first companies. And you are actually releasing products at a very, very rapid clip. There are thousands of pull requests, changes that you're making on a weekly, monthly basis. But you're assessing on a very less frequent basis, maybe once a quarter, at best once a year. And these cadences are completely at mismatch, right? How do you see this as a leader? And is there something that you worry about or not?
So we actually don't do once a quarter or once a year. So the mechanism that we have, so what we want to do is we want to rely heavily on automation. So when we say assessment and feature release, there are multiple things that you need to do, right? Let's say I am launching a brand new product. Which doesn't exist. It needs to go through the right security review. So what we do is we engage with the team at the design phase or when the ideation phase, and then do a security architecture review or threat model review. So whether it is manual or automation, that's a different point, how fast you do, but that's a stage one. So people have not even written a single line of code or have built anything that's out there. So you engage that. Does that happen 100% of the cases? Probably not. But for major releases, absolutely. So we make sure that happens. So you are not waiting for it to delay on that front. So that is there. The second thing we do is in these days is everything that gets to your GitHub or GitLab gets scanned for any sort of security issues. We called it SAST scan, right? So that is automatically scanned. And if you have the mechanism where you can block, let's say, critical and high risk issues, people cannot even check in those code to production. Same thing we do with open source vulnerability as well. The challenge happens with is if you have a huge tech debt, right? If you have not done that for a while. So if you are a cloud first, SaaS first, we are not 100% cloud or SaaS as cloud presence. We have a pretty solid on-prem presence as well. But all this code is going through the CI/CD pipeline. So we actually make sure that the security review process is pretty well ingrained so that you engage with them early and you are continuously scanning and putting the right gates so that people should not be able to introduce vulnerabilities on the first place. So that's how we do in regards to staying on top of it. Yeah.
You actually, a couple of weeks ago, you made a fantastic, I was watching your LinkedIn post, and you made a fantastic point, and you had a call out for action for all your fellow CISOs, which is insider risk on your board slide.
Yeah.
Can you double click on that a little bit? Because when everybody keeps talking about stateside actors, right, or state actors, you were talking about something about insider risk. What prompted that, and why does it concern you?
Yeah, if you look at any of the cybersecurity reports, whether it's from CrowdStrike or from any of the major Gartner or many of the yearly cybersecurity reports, which
Whereas
highlights,
a DBIR report also points to insider risk as a big threat.
Correct, exactly. So is what are the top risks or areas in the cybersecurity industry? Yes, I understand external vectors, external attackers are a factor, or nation state is a factor as well. But there is a insider threat continues to be the number one. And when I say insider threat, that doesn't really mean that doesn't. Can I pause for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, actually, I need to close the window because there is a disturbance happening. Just give me 1 sec.
No problem.
Is that okay?
That's totally okay.
Okay. All right, much better. Okay. Out of nowhere, somebody needed to do.
I think Eric can take this out. You can start from your response, and then we'll make sure.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, cool. That will be great. Yeah, thank you, guys. So insider risk, right? So insider threat. So if you look at any of the cybersecurity yearly report coming from any of these organizations, you would see insider threat continues to be the number one. And when I say insider threat, that doesn't mean that our insiders or internal employees going rogue. That's not the angle here. What I'm saying here is insiders or their day-to-day work, their access, their permission is compromised. in some form or fashion. For example, let's say developers. They write a lot of code. They check in some credentials or hard code some credentials in GitHub, and that gets leaked. There you go. You have now credentials for an external attacker to use to get into your systems. Phishing, as I said, people click on something and that malicious link can now steal tokens, which is used to access critical or crown jewel applications. So insiders this is just a couple of examples. So insiders are the most important aspect of cybersecurity. And fortunately, unfortunately, or more like unfortunately, I would say, is especially the product teams. They tend to focus a lot on securing the product rightfully, because we want to make sure that our products that we are building for our customers are with all the right mechanisms or right architecture, right posture that we are building. But those products can also be compromised through these insiders, because at the end of the day, insiders have access to systems, infrastructure, data, all that stuff. It's not completely blocked, right? So you need to look at this holistically. If we have, and I'm not even talking about scenarios where intentionally insiders doing something wrong, like let's say stealing company data and all that. I'm not even going there. That's obviously a challenge. But I'm just saying unintentionally how their day-to-day work, their permissions can be compromised, or their systems that can be compromised, and that can result in a massive breach. So that's why I was highlighting, is that risk, are you as CISOs, are you on top of it? How confident are you that this risk is solved? While we are super focused on making sure externally we cannot be attacked, broken, anything like that, how do you ensure that? And I'm pretty sure everybody has it. Does your board know about it? What are those? And how do you measure it? So that's what I was highlighting.
I guess it is less sexy to talk about some of this insider risk, but they're real.
That is true. And I actually give a lot of credit to my role at Snowflake, where I learned it. I was always been in the product side, building products like Intel or AWS Visa. I was on the product side. So I always thought product security is the more fun, sexier field. And I was a little apprehensive when I joined corporate security or enterprise security. But after 3.5, 4 years, I actually realized that's where the real risk is. And that's where especially, I can say that probably for other companies as well, but especially for tech companies, which we tend to ignore that part. That is where the main risks I have at least seen. And we did a lot of work there to reduce that, but that's where I probably learned that, yeah.
Got it. For a security practitioner or a GRC practitioner listening to you on this insider risk, and if they want to double click, right, and understand, how do I break this down into actionable set of controls or measures or metrics? Any guidance or advice on how they should think about it?
Yeah, I think, again, depending on various areas, we can take a couple of examples. First thing is, anytime you want to measure something, you want to measure that what matters, right? So what is the purpose? Why are you doing what you are doing? Let's say in GRC, one of the functions that's there is vendor risk management or vendor risk assessment. Why do you do that? Why do we need to have a vendor risk assessment mechanism in place in the first place? The answer to that is, we want to make sure that we are bringing vendors which meets our security bar, right? So then the question is, how do you define that security bar? Okay, we need to have these 10 controls or this set of capabilities in these vendors, this sort of certification with these vendors that meets the bar, right? So you build your metrics demonstrating, okay, first, let's say, do I have all the vendors that I have running in the company have gone through that assessment? So you have one metrics there. And that should tell you what's the risk that you're living. If 80% of the vendors that the company is using have not gone through that assessment, you have no idea what risks you are living with, right? So that is one metrics to show. The second thing is that you want to then, every vendor is not the same, right? If you're bringing a vendor which deals with sensitive information, their categories are different versus, let's say, any vendor that is probably not accessing your sensitive data. So it's not one size fits all, right? So you want to then highlight what are some of my major risks that we have. Then again, same thing. Like if you're building metrics, what are you measuring? I'm measuring that, am I staying on top of my high risk vendors, crown jewels? How am I monitoring that? What security issues I'm seeing there, what controls I have. That is one. The third thing I would say is, again, as I said, you need to demonstrate what value you are adding and how efficiently you are running, right? So first couple of parts probably can show you the value, the risk measurement, but how efficient it is. Like, for example, if you are a company of, let's say, 2,000 people, and if you are doing 500 vendor risk assessments per year, something is broken. You are definitely not buying 500 new vendors. So you should question, what am I doing here? Am I doing it right? I'm asking everybody to go through all this process. Is it really adding value? The way to measure that is what has been the outcome of that assessment. If you reviewed 500 and 450 of them went through without any sort of findings or any sort of disapproval or any change, then I think you are doing the process for the heck of it, right? So question that before others question you, that team should question, what value am I adding? And that's true for every function, not just for GRC. So ask those questions and measure that. Okay, we did 100 reviews, 98% went through the approval. So maybe, which is perfectly fine. It's okay to take them through the approval, but then make the process more efficient. So that's how I would measure. End of the day, figure out what is that you are measuring. Same thing with vulnerability, for example. Why do we care about vulnerabilities? Right? Vulnerabilities, we care because these vulnerabilities can be susceptible or can be exploited for external or internal attacker to get into our systems, right? And then measure, which systems are these systems really critical systems? How easy it is for them, for an external attacker to access, or is it really difficult for somebody to access? So that is how I would say measure. Again, there are definitely frameworks, going traditional route like CIS is a pretty solid framework you can use to measure some of the capabilities. So what I have done in the past is more like a combination of multiple things. Like I use some of the NIST frameworks or CIS frameworks to first start the baseline of metrics. And then on top of that, what we need. End of the day, we should know what we want to measure and then go build on top of it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think I want to go back to the example that you were talking about, vulnerabilities and the builder, the developer empathy that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think one of the fundamental problems that all developers and including security engineers face is the signal to noise ratio, right?
Yes,
there is
totally.
so much of noise that happens with almost many things that we do. The intentions may be right, but we produce a ton of data, create so much friction. What do you ask your teams to do? So, and what he said is beautiful, right? What he said is that you want the GRC teams and the security teams to step up to help the internal stakeholders to reduce the noise, right? And do as much as they can. But that also means that you require the investment. You need to invest in people, you need to invest in technology, you need to give them the right skilling and tooling and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you ask your teams to come back and present you with so that you can make those investments and approve those investments or take it to your leadership for approval?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very good question. So the immediate ask for my team is a mindset set, right? So end of the day, what is our responsibility? Security. When we talk about ownership, who owns fixing it? Obviously, the system owners own fixing it, but it's on us to empower them with the right expectation, tools, processes, so that they can focus on the right things. So we all have to be super transparent that we cannot fix it all. And that's something that should be well communicated all to the CEO, saying, hey, we have n number of issues, 50% of them or 40% of them, we are not touching it. We are transparent with the customer, we are transparent with the leadership, we are transparent with the teams. We are not fixing it because we do not have the bandwidth or the resource, or this is not the right thing to do in comparison to maybe building another product or having a mitigating controls, which reduces that to a high to a low risk. So that is there. So the ask that I have when the team comes to me to present saying, for example, in the vulnerability space, I want to bring this new tool which does ABC, which identifies vulnerabilities in certain area, let's say in the AppSec space or determining SAST or SCS score. My ask right now is not, don't give me more signals. I have enough tools now to identify what the badness is across the board. and efficiently at runtime. So all that problem is solved. Any tool I can pick, they would do. If you're not able to do it, you don't exist in the market, right? So that's there. My question now is, how do you prioritize? How do you empower my developers to fix it faster? So show me that funnel. As I was telling, I was literally actually metrics is in front of me, and in my and right now is that funnel, and then determine what is that false positive rate, and how are we determining that funnel? Like, how are they taking the context information of that finding and then helping me prioritize? So, for example, I have a vulnerability in a system which is deep under multiple layers. Don't rate it at the same severity as that of a system which is absolutely open, exposed externally, right? So I'm not going to ask this to previously, engineering team will flag it. Then the developers are going to then say, hey, this is an internal system. Then there is back and forth. No, I don't want that. What I want is, I want our security engineering team to go, or the product security team, to really bring that data and proactively say, hey guys, we found a number of issues. We reduced X amount because they're internal. We reduced Y because that is using maybe for testing purpose and not really production. And maybe this is also using an end of life product, which is going to be out of end of life in 2 months. This is another product which is not being used by our customers, but somehow existing there. So you got to bring all those angles and then provide that. There is also a model that I'm seeing in the world. Some of the products that have come is literally offloading managing of these vulnerabilities or open source through external service providers. An example is a chain guard, for example. It's a whole new business model when it comes to managing vulnerability. So you got to think about that. Like, to stay on top of it. And we are right now going through discussions about it. But again, engineering team thinking there. So security team's primary focus is, how do we help engineering teams scale? That's the big objective. Obviously, we are the subject matter on security, so we should know what would be the impact or ramification if any of these findings get exploited. But don't get just hung up there. That's not where the responsibility ends. Again, a service organization mindset where you got to build things which works for your stakeholders or customers. Otherwise, it's just useless.
Got it. So I think what you're basically saying is that security team is a multiplier effect, has to have a multiplier effect in terms on engineering, reducing friction, not adding to it. And those are phenomenally great goals. And at least that's a good starting point or a prism to start looking at things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And this also goes like, you also then you can speak for those engineering team or for business in front of a customer. Customer may say, you know what, I want all things fixed. I don't know any company who can say that, but they may say that. Then you come out very transparently why we are not fixing certain things versus it's 100% thing, because nobody can. And then your stakeholders appreciate that because they know that what is the bar, and it's the goal is not fix all. Goal is to fix things that matter.
That's a new perspective. So what you're saying is that the compliance team, if done right, if empowered right, can be the evangelists to the development engineering teams in front of your customers.
They have to, and they are in a way, right? When we go for the audit, or we go earn a new certification or renew our existing certification, it is the compliance team who is speaking on behalf of the business. They obviously everything is not solved or everything is not checked, but then they negotiate with the auditors and they provide the details. And that's where they're evangelizing or supporting these teams to drive that. So, but with that being said, I would also like to highlight one other point as well. While security teams should also be super stakeholder mindset and the service organization mindset, they have a hard job to hold these teams accountable to. And at some point, the buck stops with the business as well. And that's what I also feel like, we have to be super candid and transparent in the sense that I fully expect a developer should be somewhat familiar with the secure development process. So if a developer doesn't understand, or a software engineer doesn't understand basics of security or how to write secure code, I don't think that developer is a full-fledged developer. Doesn't matter what seniority level you are. Think about it. Like, when a developer or an engineer writes code or builds an application, he doesn't expect to write code which operates in a haphazard manner, or it's not reliable, it's not efficient. We expect them to build, which is production quality, right? So in production quality, it's not just the response time or the availability. Security has to be a factor. So that's where the leaders also need to set that mindset with their engineering teams or any team, that security is important. There is certain responsibility that you have on yourself that you need to make sure that you are meeting that on a consistent basis. So it cannot be just one team being super service oriented, the other team saying, hey, I don't know anything, you just tell me, I'll do it. That's also not going to work. And sometimes I hear, I did it because security said so. I blame both of them. First of all, security should not be like that. And second thing is, you should not also say, just because security is saying I'm doing it. No, you have every right to challenge. You have every right. End of the day, you own it. So you should be convinced, right? Just because security is saying don't do it. Things like that.
It's
so
a
yeah, I
partnership.
think it has to be dual. Yeah.
Yeah. You have been a veteran. You've been an advocate of artificial intelligence, right? AI. In fact, pre-Gen AI days, if I can say that. And I think you see that safe and responsible AI as a critical feature, right? That needs to be
Absolutely.
built. And I'm going to quote something that you said that I found very, very interesting. You said, you're talking about the pushbacks from the security team, and you're saying the conversations like these are a strong reminder of the healthy paranoia the cybersecurity brings to this space.
Yeah.
Can you double click and explain what did you mean by that?
Yeah. So I was actually looking at that interview with Sam Altman about overall how do we see at overall AI adoption and its usage and the problems that it is trying to solve. And as you rightly pointed out, I was leading product security at AWS. That's where I first forayed into the ML. That time it was not AI. That was more like the ML services, like SageMaker or many other AWS products, services that they build. I was directly responsible for many of those products and making sure that they go through the right security and the checks or scrutiny that we do. I think we are obviously in that rush to go adopt, use this technology, and I'm all for it too. I personally want to already use some of them in my cybersecurity space, but we also need to be extremely paranoid about its ramification if it goes wrong, right? So specifically when it comes to user, I'm talking in the enterprise space. Today, let's say we have company information or employee information in our systems, right? And we bring in a whole new AI product or a Gen AI product, or we build internally. And we are, let's say, a simple RAG app that we are building, which takes all this data and then summarizes it in a very succinct way that anybody can consume. But now you are opening up that access to all this data. So previously, let's say only a selected group of people were able to see certain records. Now you are summarizing it. How are you ensuring that access for that data through that summarization app is still maintained? Obviously, we get very excited when we say, boy, we have a tool which now so easily gives us a view or a summary of things which I was spending multiple clicks or few minutes to retrieve. So which teams like, the data science team or AI team or engineering team or security team needs to question that, take a step back. And when people question that, don't misjudge them that, hey, they are naysayers. So in that interview, that's what I was noticing, at least when the question was coming up, sometimes it may come across that maybe the person is not believing in AI much, or they are not a big believer in that. Yeah, they have, just because they are asking the question, that doesn't mean they are not big believers. So in fact, those who question, they actually want to use it in the right way as soon as possible. So you have to appreciate that as a leader. Don't just go blind saying, hey, I want half of my code generated through AI. That's pretty easy to say. Maybe you can achieve that overnight. But what ramification, what challenges, what issues that you are introducing, look for that as well. And it is okay to say that, hey, I'm going to do that due diligence, maybe once I start rolling it, that is perfectly fine. But don't completely discount, and don't obviously shoot the messenger or the person who is the most paranoid asking that question. Otherwise, what happens? Security teams get burdened by that. Hey, they are slowing down the business, and you don't want. Then they will buckle up, right? Then they are going to hesitate to raise those concerns. So you got to empower them while you want to make sure you want to adopt this technology. By no means there is no pushback. You're not adopting, but take the right due diligence steps. So, for example, at Medallia, we are we are AI first company. We rolled out many AI products and for our customers. But when we adopt new, and we are completely open culture when it comes to, we want to let our employees use AI products, but it goes through the right scrutiny. Because another way to look at it is, I would rather have a controlled set of AI apps and services versus either blocking completely, which is not going to work, or not knowing what people are using, right? Obviously, people are using it day in, day out. So that's what I meant. Don't shoot the messenger. Go fast, go big, but also be open-minded about people, those who are challenging it and questioning it and raising the concern. In fact, extend them a forum so that you want to bring that devil's advocate angle or the paranoia angle to the conversation as a leader. Yeah.
Whys are an important part of this. The discovery process is a very important part of keeping us all
absolutely.
safe.
Yeah.
I think security teams, and I wanted to focus particularly on the GRC teams, are in a very tight predicament, right? Because we are all moving away from this cloud first to the AI first company, and there is a lot more emphasis on, I don't think we necessarily build traditional models anymore. Most of us are building some sort of fine-tuning on top of LLMs, like you said. Typically, RAG-based applications are fine-tuning.
Yeah.
But the security teams, and particularly the GRC teams, have to catch up on all of the things that are happening in the engineering world and the operations world, right?
Yeah.
How technical, and my question is particularly to the GRC team in your portfolio, how technical do these teams need to be?
Yeah, they need to be somewhat technical in the sense. I agree with you that I don't think broadly these companies are training models. In fact, I was actually in one of the conversations with one of the AI companies, and they said 99% of them are not even fine-tuning it. So it's basically the models have become so sophisticated now and intelligent now that you don't need to even fine-tune. You basically, as you said, use the RAG architecture or multi-agent, agent-to-agent architecture, which gives you all you need. So you don't need to even fine-tune. So basically use foundation models to build agents or apps on top of it. So when it comes to GRC teams, they need to go understand what that means, right? What is at risk? So if the GRC team's primary responsibility is to make sure that we have to meet those certifications, or we need to identify what risks are out there, or we need to collect evidence so that we can continue to pass audit, then they need to understand what are some of the new use cases or new scenarios that are getting introduced, or how they are getting accessed. For example, let's say if the way I see AI apps stack is basically, let's say you have at a minimum, obviously we are not going into the hardware space unless you are a graphics company or building hardware on that. I'm not going there, purely on the software side. End of the day, the first layer is more like the LLMs, right? So if you are not really training LLMs, so maybe or fine-tuning LLMs, then that concern of data poisoning in regards to while you're training probably doesn't exist. It exists in a different context, right? So don't come up with the same list of compliance or control needs that's applicable for somebody who is building LLMs to just an app or using something like a ChatGPT, right? Which they are not even building anything. So being specific, and you need to understand that. First, you need to understand, let's say, ISO 42000 certification gives you a certain framework or a NIST framework to understand the risk, but then make it specific to your company. So go technical in the sense, okay, what is my team building and what risk I have? So if they are using, let's say, an off-the-shelf SaaS LLM, then your risk posture is different versus I'm taking Llama and deploying locally or hosting it, right? So you got to be very specific instead of generic. So one of the challenges the GRC teams actually face sometimes is that being very generic. Come with a list of compliance controls and then go simply ask engineering, hey, you got to meet 100% of them. No, you need to refine it and make the requirements understandable to developers and then go from there. So understand overall how this world is evolving when it comes to building AI apps while you are building, and how we are using it, what risks we are worried about, which is different. Some of them are different from what we have seen in the past, right? Because the stack is completely changing, as I see.
I think that is great advice, Jiphun.
Yeah.
Jiphun, when you present to your management team and to the board on risks, in practical terms, how much do you quantify versus qualify?
Yeah, I think that's a big challenge. I think you are touching a very good point. Like, how do you measure risk? How do you present it to the board? Which one is more important? Obviously, you cannot go to them with a laundry list of every finding or every issue, but you got to highlight. So the way I present, or the way I have done that so far, is first build a risk management program. What does that entail? So the way it entails is that you have a mechanism which, let's say, primarily driven by the GRC team, where they work with all the stakeholders to determine what are some of the major risks that are out there. This is not audit findings. This is not vulnerability list. This is not security findings. This is major risks. For example, I'm making it up, which is data exfiltration from a company. Like, certain risks can result in company data getting lost. So that is one big risk, right? So what are some of the key scenarios that can result in that? So the way you present that is that. So I think qualified is okay. Quantifying exactly, being very objective, is difficult. There are some frameworks, like FAIR framework is one that I have used in the past, but it's an extremely complicated, time-consuming mechanism too. So you got to find a mix of it, like certain. So when you go present to the board, you are not just going with just the top 10 risks. You are also bringing some metrics. So let's say one of the risks is data loss can happen because, or your system can be compromised because you have a huge amount of vulnerability. So if you bring the vulnerability metrics, that becomes very objective. So you know what, I got N number of vulnerabilities, let's say critical or X amount of that. And that is the risk that we have, and that results to this qualified data loss cyber risk. So you can have a mix of it. And what I have done is that, like, when I go present to the cyber committee, audit committee, or in the board, is that bringing that mix of qualitative analysis angle, also objective, or more like data-driven aspect.
Got it.
And this is risk management is the hardest thing actually in cybersecurity, that's a pretty difficult problem to solve. So that's practical. I know all of us would love to see the exact, hey, if this risk gets compromised, I will have a hit of 2 million versus the other risk, which is 10 million. But there is always that qualitative angle. I'm
Got it.
Improving that, but it's still there. Yeah.
Got it. We are going to have a few guests on the show that are going to dive deeper into risk quantification, just that topic.
Correct.
So it's very topical. You are a big advocate of startup companies, and the sales 101 is to create customer urgency, right? And what that actually invariably translates to in cybersecurity world is FUD. You are on the receiving end of all this FUD.
Yeah.
How do you see it, right? And what advice do you have for startup founders and sales leaders, right? Trying to reach out to leaders like you, because this is not helpful. So the question is, how do you stop doing it, and what is helpful?
Again, first understand the problem. First go talk to whether if you're talking to the CISOs or CEOs of the companies, then first understand what problem they have, versus coming and telling them how your product solves a problem that you have not even learned, right? So it's perfectly fine. In general, I have actually more appreciation for the founders, and as I said, that gives me that's a pretty solid angle for me to stay on top of what's new. So that's why I support them, I advise them quite a bit, and I enjoy that. But one thing that I see is not understanding the problem, right? So then in that case, what happens is, or solving the problem not in any different way than what's there. So I would say my first advice is, first, if you're talking to the CISO, understand what problems they have. First. Second thing, just because they have a problem, that doesn't mean they want to solve it right away. And they are never going to say that, nope, I don't worry about this issue, because they do, but they cannot do maybe much because either they don't have bandwidth, budget, or they just are not thinking that's such a high risk at the moment that I need to go do that. That's the reality of our world, right? We all have constraints that we need to work around.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. Don't have to continuously bombard them with 15 other requests if you did not see. At least that's how I see it. Like, I don't like to waste anybody's time. So if you're continuously bombarding them with same thing, that says that they are not interested. And the last thing is the point solutions. I understand everything cannot be a single platform, but if you're building point solutions, that's also another somewhat demoralizing aspect, right? Hey, I already have, let's say, if you look at, it's really painful, especially if you go to identity space. Man, there are probably 1,200 companies building solutions around identity. And it's okay to have 3, 4, 5 in each of these buckets, but tens and maybe even close to hundreds. I don't know how that scales. So if you are doing that point solution, extremely point solution. I'm not saying everything should be on the platform. That's we are far from that. And I understand also best of breed. All that is good, but point solutions are all over the place. So that's not going to get a lot of attention, at least from CISOs of large companies in general, right? So that's another thing. So I would probably highlight those 3 things. First, understand the problem. No need to harp too much if you have heard directly, or read between the lines, and you're saying that, hey, this person is just not ready. It's not that they are not appreciating the product. It's just that they are not ready. And the last one is don't go super point targeted solutions. That's not helping. Yeah.
I think that is brilliant, fantastic advice.
Sure.
CISOs are in the hottest seat, right?
Yeah.
Than any other CXO leader out there in corporate America. How do you deal with this intense pressure daily?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of a few things. And the first of all, you have to be in an environment where you can depend on your team. So if you have a solid team, I've been extremely fortunate to have surrounded by amazing teams. When I was not the CISO, my CISOs were extremely supportive of me in the sense, I cannot have sleepless night just for the heck of it. Yes, everything is not tightened, everything is not controlled, but you cannot, be restless about everything, right? So you need to have a solid team and make sure that your teams own stuff and they are giving you the right support. So that's extremely important for a CISO to succeed and have a, not burn out, basically. So for me, that's extremely important. That's I focus a lot on building top talent, bringing top talent, and building highly productive teams, and constantly questioning and being paranoid about things and knowing what's good, what's not good, right? So I depend on my team on that. So that's first. I think second thing I do is, obviously, my family has been extremely supportive of that. So my wife, my kids, and that they take care of a lot of things out of work, which gives me probably the bandwidth to focus on work. So having that outlet.
And you also travel a lot with the family, I'm guessing, right?
I do, as much as we could. We do either fly out or maybe drive down to local areas. Then networking and talking and learning from fellow CISOs. So I attend some of the forums. I speak to some of the other CISOs, how they handle this situation or what are they worried about. So sometimes what happens is when you hear others struggling with similar challenges and they are tackling it in a different way, then you learn from that, right? So that always gives you space that, hey, you are not the only one who is failing. Probably everybody is failing, so you should not feel that bad. So that is another, or somebody is failing, how they are addressing. And last thing is maybe, stay active in the sense I like to run. So that's been my stress buster.
Okay.
So I do that, something like that's my standard exercise. So that has always helped me calm down my blood pressure or stress, just release that. So those are a few things I would say that comes to my mind. Yeah.
We are at the end of the segment, Jiphun, and I want to give you the yield for the last 60 seconds or so. Any people that you want to shout out to, right, that have helped you get to where you are,
Yeah.
or any books that have helped you shape your thought process, whatever you want to call out.
Oh, this is great. No, first of all, Raj, this is great. Thank you for reaching out and asking. And you guys do this podcast really very professional way. And I'm very happy and good luck to you. And I'll be more than happy to help you, have amazing sessions as well, wherever I can. So thank you for reaching out and asking for this and making the whole setup and arrangement. So this is great. So thank you for doing that, first of all.
Thank you.
In regards to books, another thing is actually I do is read. In my website, I've started probably last couple of years publishing some of the books. So I'm a big, obviously technical side, you can always find many books on cybersecurity or risks in regards to how to measure cybersecurity risk and things like that. But it's more on the attitude side is what I think personally matters a lot as you grow, as you become a leader. So I'm a big Adam Grant fan. So, Hidden Potential, I think one of the books that I read recently, that is one. Again, as I said, building partnership and community is another. So, forgetting the exact book, Jono Bacon wrote that on... forgetting the exact name of the book, but that is another book that you should look. He who led the Ubuntu open source community. I think the Empowering Through Community or something like that. Forgetting that name. So that is another. People, obviously, there are way too many. So I am extremely fortunate and grateful for a lot of people. First, obviously, my family starts with my dad. My parents, my mom is not anymore. So dad is who has been guiding all of us and a big influencer in having that work ethics or ambition or being somewhat customer oriented. Then I'll say my wife, been an amazing support for all my life. Not all my life, at least for last good solid 20-25 years. And then I would say the colleagues and my managers. I've been extremely fortunate to have some amazing managers. Two of them, one of them was director at Intel. His name is Moji. I consider him as a mentor even today. That was one when I was transitioning from an IC to a manager. He gave me a certain advice and mentorship that I'm deeply grateful for. And I think recent times, my previous boss at Snowflake, I would say he was the VP of Security, the CISO of Snowflake. He is Mario Duarte. He, again, same thing, he did wonders to my career.
These
are some of the people I reach out. Yeah, I would say, and obviously the people that I work with. So I've been that's another thing I say, always put yourself in places and teams where you have much smarter people than what you are. Sometimes it will be intimidating, but in the long run, it's going to help you learn. So that's another attitude I have always carried out. So that's all I would say.
No, Jiphun, this has been a fantastic session, and thanks for being on the show. Sincerely appreciate it.
Awesome, man. This is great. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you for listening to Security and GRC Decoded. We are your go-to resource for staying ahead in governance, risk, and compliance. If today's episode resonated with you, we would love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. To dive deeper into these topics, visit us at compliancecow.com and follow us on LinkedIn for more insights and community conversations. Join us next time as we continue decoding the future of GRC. Thank you.